Today I'm talking to Corey Diamond, CEO of Efficiency Canada, in honor of Cut Your Energy Costs Day. Efficiency Canada studies Canada's energy efficiency, showing how an energy efficient economy benefits Canada and lifts the voices of Canadians who want to become more energy efficient to create change. Hi, Mr. Diamond. Thanks so much for joining me today.
No problem. And you can call me Corey. It's nice to be here.
Thanks. If homes became more efficient, how much carbon could we save?
There's a couple answers to that. First is in Canada, buildings that emit carbon and have emissions account for the third largest source of emissions in our country, behind the oil and gas sector and transportation. So it's quite large. It's about 13% of Canada's greenhouse gas emissions. But then when you add in that sometimes the source of our electricity, for example, could also be carbon intensive, that number rises to about 18%. So it is quite significant in Canada. So how we operate our buildings, how we heat them, the energy we use in them matters a lot.
We just put in a new induction stove and replaced our old furnace with a heat pump. One weird thing was that you have to go through Enbridge gas, emphasis on gas, to get started with the Canada Greener Homes grant process. It's like having a fitness center and a cookie factory. Why are we using a gas company to help us electrify our homes?
That is a really good question and probably would take an entire episode to unpack. But the reality is that in Ontario, there's only a few entities that have touch points with people's homes. And typically that's with who you get your bill from. So we know that the majority of people in Ontario heat their homes using natural gas, and therefore they have an account with Enbridge Gas. And what we're trying to do is get them to reduce the amount of energy they use and ultimately bring their emissions down to zero. So when the government of Canada was looking for delivery partners and saying, okay, who has the most touch points in with homeowners, who is able to deliver on very aggressive energy efficiency targets, which Enbridge has done, they looked to see how fast they could get the program out and chose Enbridge to do that. Now, the interesting thing about the program is that it's not Enbridge is obviously providing the grants and incentives, and the program is administered through them. But as you pointed out, you don't have to stick with a natural gas system. You can switch out fully to an electric heat pump if you wanted to, which would ultimately, you would not be a customer of Enbridge any longer. So,
Yeah, that's efficient but weird.
yeah. Well, welcome to the energy efficiency sector, Robert. That's the way it goes sometimes.
The people we got our heat pump from told us that in Canada you can't just have a heat pump, that you need a backup gas furnace as well. We got one, but we hopefully don't have to use it much. It just seemed like the providers were very reluctant to do anything electric. They still wanted everything to be gas. Is that true, or did we just get misled?
Yeah, I don't want to say you fully got misled because sometimes, based on the temperature, the heat pumps might need a backup system in order to kick in to give it that extra sort of boost. Now, in my house, I got an electric backup system and disconnected our natural gas furnace. So you have options on what your backup boost could be on those days when it's very, very cold. Also, though, there is brand new technology that's coming on the market. They're called cold climate heat pumps, and you won't need those backup systems because the heat pumps will be working better. So I think in your case, you could have been provided a different option. I don't know the exact situation that you're in, but you could have been provided a different option where you could have switched to an electric backup. It does bring up a big point, which is more education is required for different service providers so that they know about these types of options and that they're giving you the best information that you want to fully bring down your emissions to zero.
So, did they just not know about the electric backup?
Yeah, maybe they did or maybe they didn't. I'm not sure. But the weird thing about all these energy efficiency upgrades, and maybe you noticed this when they were doing the changes in your house, is that every single house is so different, right? So there's not like one system. It's not like going to buy a car. Everyone gets the same car if they buy that model. With houses, it all depends on all of the interesting little parts of your house that operate together. The mechanical system, like your heating, and whether or not you have the right ductwork, whether or not you have enough space. All these things are sort of taken into account. So perhaps they were looking at that. I'm not sure. But that's why each energy efficient upgrade does require that more personalized or customized approach for each house based on their needs.
Okay. What should Canadians ask for if they're in a cold climate then?
First thing that you want to think about is what we call a whole home approach. So it's not just about your heating system, it's about all the other parts of your house that operate together and then thus dictate what type of and how big a system you need. So you have to first look at the whole system. And there is in the program that's out now with Canada Greener Homes, they do what's called an energy audit, and they go around the house and they basically look at all the various different parts of the house's system that interplay with each other. So they look at your insulation, they look at windows, they think about the furnace, and based on that they come up with types of recommendations that you could look at. So we would always recommend, now when you're doing an energy efficiency retrofit, you pull it all together, because first, what you want to do is think about plugging all those holes so that there's not all this energy leaking out. And you do that by doing things like caulking around windows and insulation. And then, of course, you could look at windows. And then based on that, how much does your house need as far as its energy use, and what mechanical system do you want to put in place? So when the energy advisor comes, they might know, and if not, then they would perhaps refer you to service providers who would know based on the climate conditions of where you live and the other changes you're making in the house, how big a system you need and what the right system is for what you're looking for.
All right. You can get a partial rebate on some of the work you do to make your home more efficient, correct?
That's right. Yep.
The home energy assessment costs around $600, which you can be reimbursed for. Then, once you've done that, you can get money for better insulation, windows and doors, water heaters, and heat pumps, solar panels, and other stuff. If you only did get one thing in your home to make it energy efficient, what should it be?
That's that. You're putting me into a trap and picking the best thing. And like I said, it's totally up to every house, the age of your house. It's up to the size of your house, how your house is currently operating, whether or not you've made any retrofits or changes in the last little while. And so that would then dictate what your top things are to do. So when you get this energy audit, and you mentioned that it's $600, what happens is through the grant program, you get somebody to come to your house and they do an audit of your home, and they identify in that audit where your home is operating now and what kinds of changes might be useful if you want to bring down that energy usage. So in that report, that's where you start to see where maybe your top priorities might be. And then it's up to you to go out and find the service providers and things to make the changes. And once you've made the changes, they come back and they measure your energy usage again, and they can actually tell you how much you've saved based on those changes. When you've done that second audit, then you get your $600 back. So it ends up being free. So it's a good idea to get it done. It allows you to get access to the grants, and it gives you a really good sense of maybe what your top 2 or 3 priorities would be based on where you are and what your house is, how your house is operating.
Yeah. You can also apply for the Canada Greener Homes loan for up to $40,000. You need to apply for the loan before you do any of the work, though. My family put in new windows to replace old leaky aluminum ones and an Ecobee thermostat, and we were not able to have any of them covered. We wished it was easier to find out about the loan and to make use of it. Apparently, the grant is set to end and will not take on new applications past March 2024. The Canada Greener Homes grant ran out of money and ended abruptly February 13th. Shouldn't the government be helping people find out about this instead of canceling it?
That's a great question. Yes, we would advocate that these types of programs continue and don't end abruptly. But one of the interesting things about the reasoning behind why it's ending early is because how popular it is. So families like yours and across Canada have taken up this idea of doing retrofits and doing their part to reduce their emissions and then accessing the grant or the loan. But you're right, sometimes it's hard to find out information, and it's usually difficult to navigate all the various different things you need to do in order to get those grants and loans. So definitely the government has some work to do in order to improve how people find out about it and make it easy. Now, one thing Efficiency Canada has been promoting and has been used in places like the Netherlands and other jurisdictions in the world is that basically you create almost like a concierge. When you go to a hotel and there's like somebody who's right there in the lobby and they're like, oh, let me take care of this for you, and would you like reservations at a restaurant, and can I take your bag, and somebody just takes care of everything for you. So there are ways that you can make it so easy for families to make these changes and business models to create so that you don't have to do all that heavy lifting because you're busy going to piano and your mom and dad are busy doing stuff and you don't have the time to try to navigate it all. And so if we had somebody who came and said, look, we're going to take care of all the grants, we're going to take care of all the loans, we're going to go find you the right service providers to come and do all this stuff, and we'll take care of it all. And you just pay us one fee and we'll take care of it for you. I think that that kind of business model is starting to take root in other countries, and hopefully it starts to take more root in Canada too.
Yeah. Canada gave $15 billion that we know of to fossil fuel subsidies in 2023. Imagine if they used that money to make Canadian homes more efficient. That would be awesome.
Yeah, you're right. That would be awesome. And you know what we think? If you were to visualize energy waste, so all that energy that you're producing in your house and goes out the window because your house is not as efficient as it needs to be. Imagine if you treated that the same way you treated a resource like oil and gas or something that you dug out of the ground. It would be the biggest resource that we could have. And you're right. Imagine if we could spend $15 billion on that, on a clean energy resource like getting rid of energy waste, instead of subsidizing new resources like oil and gas. So we're right behind you.
Even though there was a rebate, it's still expensive to do all this. Many people can't afford energy upgrades, even though they'll save money in the long run. What do we do about helping people who can't pay for the upfront costs of an energy retrofit?
There are, according to our reports, about 5 million Canadians that find it very hard to pay their energy bills every month. And it's very difficult for them to find the upfront cost to go and make the changes with the hopes that over time they're going to save energy because they just don't have that money up front. It's also very hard for them to go into debt and take out more of a loan. So what we suggest, and some provinces in Canada have good programs and the federal government has done some work on this, but we need to do a lot more. And what that looks like is we identify the people that need it the most who aren't able to pay, and we hire local people from those communities and they go in and they actually do the retrofits for free. They directly install the work and immediately that household sees reduced costs and makes their life more affordable. So it's an opportunity to really tackle affordability and at the same time help people make their homes more comfortable and at the same time reduce our emissions. So we've been calling on the federal government to boost investment in that to help out the people that need it the most.
That's great. How can people find out about that? Is there like a website for it?
Yeah, so if you go to our website, efficiencycanada.org, and we have a whole section on that. It's called Low Income Energy Efficiency. And we even have action alerts. So from time to time, we ask people to sign a petition or send a letter to their elected official and make it easy for them to just click and add their name. So we often do things like that to kind of create more awareness and more noise so that the government hears that lots of people want them to do that.
That's really good. Are there little things that kids and parents can do around the house together, like on the weekends, to make it more energy efficient?
Yeah, there are. First one is together with your parents, you could light a candle and you could walk around with the candle, or you could light an incense stick and you could go around to the places in your house and you'll see just by the way the flame of the candle's going or where the smoke from the incense is going, where there's holes essentially and where air is leaking out of your house. And then you can identify the type of caulking or weather stripping that you could use. Typically it's around windows and doors. And then you can just do that work right there. And you could basically plug the holes that are around your windows and doors. And that's easy to do. You can get that at any local hardware store. It's kind of fun too, because it's sort of a big gun and fill it with caulking. The second thing you can do is a very simple lighting audit. You can look at the types of light bulbs that you're using. The best, most efficient light bulbs available today are called LEDs, light emitting diodes. They come in lots of different sizes and shapes, colors even. You can have one that flashes and strobes, all kinds of different things. So you can go around your house and look at, do you have any inefficient light bulbs and can those be replaced with LEDs? And based on the type of bulb, you could then, again, over time, pick up a couple bulbs here and there and do that replacement. And then the third one is I mentioned earlier about petitions and things like that. We are big believers in raising the big voice of everybody who wants to see these changes. So write a letter, sign a petition, organize your friends, tell your local elected officials that you care about this stuff. Sometimes it's not just the voluntary actions we make in our houses that matter. It's also about raising your political voice and really getting governments to listen and invest heavily into these types of things. So we always encourage that and try to make it easy for people to do that, so that once again, governments listen to people, and if we can make a big enough noise around it, then maybe they'll listen.
That's really cool. My favorite one was the candle one. I actually didn't know that. That's really cool.
Let me know how it goes.
All right. Thanks. Thanks so much for joining me today, Corey. Please click the link below to find out more about Efficiency Canada. And remember, together kids can save the world. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert.